Welcome to our iSoto video, Things Are Different Now. We're sorry we can't meet in person, but grateful to the organizers for making this virtual conference possible. One of the advantages of being remote is the chance to include more students, which is especially important to us since we're exploring the role of students as partners in the response to COVID-19. We are a team of faculty, staff, and students at the Center for New Designs in Learning and Scholarship, which we call CNDLS, who worked together to support a pivot to remote learning at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. We'll start by introducing ourselves. I'm Maggie Debelius. I'm a professor in English and Learning Design and Technology, and I'm the Director of Faculty Initiatives at CNDLS.
I'm Susannah McGowan. I'm the Associate Director for Curriculum Design at CNDLS and the Red House.
I'm Reid. I'm an MA candidate in English and a graduate associate at CNDLS.
I'm Eason. I just recently graduated from Georgetown this past May 2020, and I am now a staff member working for the Hub for Equity and Innovation.
I'm Aiyanna Maciel. I'm a master's candidate with the Center for Latin American Studies and a graduate associate at CNDLS.
Like institutions everywhere, Georgetown switched to remote learning in spring 20. CNDLS, which serves as both a center for teaching and learning, as well as a center for technology innovation, responded with a series of offerings to prepare faculty to teach remotely, including a cohort-based course design institute. As with other centers for teaching and learning, we saw a rapid increase in faculty participation and worked with a record of over 1,800 unique faculty throughout the summer. One key decision we made was to engage students in the work of preparing faculty to teach remotely. The decision to collaborate was born out of necessity. We wanted to offer faculty a rich, high-touch experience, but lacked the resources to run offerings with CNDLS staff alone. Engaging students as designers, facilitators, and presenters not only enabled us to extend the reach and impact of our course design institutes, but also to present realistic partnership options for faculty new to online learning. Many faculty expressed concern about the complexity of mastering new technology, delivering information synchronously and asynchronously to students in multiple time zones, facilitating discussion in new ways, moderating an online chat, promoting engagement, building community online, and more. It soon became clear that faculty would need to incorporate not just a student perspective, but also students as co-creators in order to navigate a new kind of classroom.
In January 2020, I developed a proposal for our center to create more students as partners opportunities to infuse programs with student input. Knowing that Cathy Bovill from the University of Edinburgh in the UK was a visiting scholar in the US at the time, we invited her to Georgetown to discuss her research. Our conversations focused on the need for equitable engagement in students as partners work, ensuring that all students have opportunities to participate. Following her visit, we were invigorated even more to work intentionally to include students into our programs. In March 2020, we dropped all aspirational programming to focus our center's efforts towards preparing faculty and staff and students for the virtual environment transition. Amidst the uncertainty at that time, we did not lose sight of our efforts to include student voices. In order to understand the student experience, however, we realized we needed to look for ways to include student voices responsibly and nimbly into the equation as a means to strengthen the virtual experience at the university. As we reflect on our summer efforts in this video, we grounded these efforts in Cathy Bovill's inspiring work and the work of Jenny Mary and Lucy Mercer Mapstone, where they define partnerships as ways of engaging in teaching and learning as something done with, not to, students, rooted in respect, reciprocity, and shared responsibility. Another recent article by Sasha Mathrani and Alison Cook-Sather described pedagogical partnerships as instrumental in, quote, how we combine extending ourselves and being receptive to what comes towards us, and how we work around the obstacles we encounter. Working with students, extending ourselves and being receptive to the obstacles of 2020 helped us foster an agile mindset to a persistently uncertain academic and societal environment. Mapping backwards to Cathy Bovill's visit, our efforts for instructional continuity compelled us to think in partnership to adapt, to change, and to branch off into multiple forms of support for virtual teaching and learning. One of those forms took shape in a graphic essay by one of our center's graduate associates, Claire Reid.
When Georgetown entered our instructional continuity plan in early March, I was one of many graduate students sent reeling by the changes. I was also, unlike a lot of graduate students, actively working in pedagogy in a center for teaching and learning, which gave me a lot of insight into the entire process from quite a few angles. So when I was approached by one of our Candle staff to see if I'd be interested in creating a graphic essay about that experience, I knew that it would be a really great opportunity to merge those two areas of my life at the time. Over the course of the month of April, I wrote, storyboarded, revised, and fully illustrated this essay entitled Things Are Different Now, which detailed my transition from living in DC and working and attending classes in person to moving in with my parents in small town Illinois and working and completing my classes remotely. Specifically, this essay focused on both the personal and emotional experience I had during this transition, as well as the pedagogical approaches that allowed me to feel like my coursework, research, and Candle's work were still meaningful, even when rapidly shifted online. I particularly focused on imploring faculty to be flexible, but to maintain academic rigor, which was a theme we ended up carrying through the summer in our CDIs as a big takeaway for our faculty. Throughout the composition of this essay, I partnered with a staff member who helped with revisions and suggested the general direction of the essay. His partnership throughout the process made my work feel less like a novelty and more like a crucial expression of the student experience at Georgetown. Amazingly, it ended up being a really successful post on our website and has been viewed nearly 1,100 times since it went live in May. I was so glad that people were able to connect with it and that I was both able to convey the importance of listening to student voices and able to talk about some of the amazing pedagogical changes I had seen happening. It's really important to me that people listen to student voices, that people take them seriously, and that people know that the hard work they put in when making these pedagogical adjustments is actually affecting students in a massive way. If it were not for the flexibility that I've seen over the past year, I think I wouldn't have been nearly as satisfied as I have been with my graduate student experience. And I think that comes completely out of professors listening to students. And if the people at Candles hadn't been listening to student voices, then I never would have had this opportunity to make this art either. So that was really important as well, that both my professors and my colleagues at Candles saw me as a partner. That partnership experience wasn't exclusive to me though. Alexa Eason, a recent Georgetown grad, also saw that through her work in sharing student voices.
Claire's images became the catalyst to ensure students were partners in building an environment beneficial for all members of our community. We learned the first step in developing summer and fall programming meant we needed to hear from students. At the time, Georgetown was adapting to a remote learning environment, and I was struggling with what it truly meant to be a student, and more specifically, a Hoya, which is Georgetown's mascot. I was also coming to terms with what it meant to be alive during an unprecedented time where climate change, a global pandemic, racial warfare, and more were all happening at once. I realized the advantages and disadvantages this new reality presented for me. It ignited a drive within me to help reimagine and design what a Hoya experience should be. Thankfully, I got the opportunity to be the lead moderator of a student panel during the Teaching, Learning, Innovation Summer Institute, an annual event for faculty and staff at Georgetown, in June when Susannah McGowan reached out to me. The panel was named Cura Personalis in the Cloud to hone in on the virtual learning environment and the Latin meaning of Cura Personalis, care for the individual person. It's a key institutional value that includes a holistic view of people and emphasizes their individual needs and gifts. The panel format, makeup, and questions were heavily informed by my own experience, as well as hearing from other students who had similar and yet different experiences. We wanted to ensure those who attended were able to hear genuine student responses about the aspects of their courses that were effective in maintaining both a sense of community while also retaining students' engagement. I was not surprised by the responses I heard as students discussed how offering flexibility, understanding, and providing a balance between work and social lives played a role in their engagement with the Georgetown community. Most of the responses focused on and delved into the idea of seeing students more as human, trying to apply a holistic approach than as simply scholars. I was shocked by the number of people who attended the panel and how many echoed the need for student panels such as this one in the future. In that moment, this panel highlighted the need for student voices as co-partners in redesigning Georgetown. And at the same time, the panel ignited a sense of hope in me leading to my decision to apply for a position at the Hub for Equity and Innovation so that I could continue helping mold what Georgetown will become for students, but now as a staff member.
As the summer went on, we drew on the success of the TLISI panel and decided to invite students as partners to join us not only as CDI coordinators, but as panelists at our weekly plenary sessions, a decision that deepened the level of conversation and switched the focus of the CDI from teaching to learning. Many GAs, including Claire and me, served as cohort coordinators throughout the summer, spending time each week getting Canvas courses in order, sending out communications, moderating Zoom sessions, and answering questions about online pedagogy. In my personal CDI experience, I was a frequent panelist during the Thursday Teach plenary and was also asked by my facilitators on 2 different occasions, one in June and one in July, to share my personal student perspective on the spring semester, my hopes for fall, in order to more intimately communicate with those week's cohorts. Instead of them only getting a snippet of my experience in the plenary session, they were able to engage fully with my story. At the moment I first presented, protests against police brutality had just unfolded across the country, and I found myself concerned about both the COVID-19 pandemic and the parallel pandemic of systemic racism. I was far removed from my hub of Washington, D.C., and sitting out the pandemic in my small hometown in Maine, worrying about my Black and Brown friends in larger metropolitan areas. I wanted to donate and protest and do everything I could to support the movement, but hesitated for fear of becoming infected with COVID-19 and passing it to my grandmother. The first time that I presented, I was working with my own program, the Center for Latin American Studies, so I felt that it was important for them to interface directly with one of their graduate students in order to be able to understand the breadth of experience their own students face. I was able to relate to them, speak with them on a personal level, and relate the state of our world to what was going on in Latin America to help contextualize my story. At the time, I was taking a summer course, working almost full-time, and trying to balance being home with family for an extended period of time for the first time since graduating high school. Even so, I recognized that my situation was privileged to have been able to relocate to my home with my family, to have my own workspace, to have food on the table, and to have a relatively stable internet connection for my responsibilities. I recounted these complicated struggles to faculty with the hope that they could delve into one experience with empathy and understanding and see similar situations reflected in their incoming students. My experience was only one, but an example of the many ways the pandemic affected students. By having me, a graduate associate and full-time master's candidate, take the lead and encourage dialogue, we as a team were modeling to faculty what it might look like to involve students in reflective activities in their own courses.
We want to conclude with our key takeaways from this experience. My takeaway is about student creativity, as illustrated by Claire's stunning graphics, as well as our opening song, Tiffany Periphery. The music is by Kent Hall, one of our recent graduates, who spent his months of social distancing writing songs with found materials like spoons and wrenches and a typewriter.
My key takeaway is community, the necessity of community to work with each other, with students and faculty and staff to be receptive and to overcome the obstacles of 2020.
My key takeaway is about listening. Based on the response to our features of student voices, people want to hear student voices and are interested in them, so it's important to find ways to promote them.
My key takeaway in one word is resilience. What's inspiring is the way that faculty, staff, and students continue to be co-designers and create new iterations of what it means to be a Hoya, even if we are not in person.
My takeaway is about dialogue. The faculty-student partnership that we built really inspired more productive and empathetic dialogue among the faculty that we worked with.